You're on a retro trek with the caramel apples. This is the. Okay. You're on a retro trek with the caramel apples this week. This is an apple snack that dials up thoughtful, heartwarming nostalgia of all things great and retro in the golden era of pop culture and beyond. This week is Beyond. I'm Kennedy Rizzo.
And I'm Cooper Lee.
Join us. Let's dive in.
Kennedy.
Hey.
I'm kind of liking this topic we're going to talk about this week, but before we get started, let's kind of just give a little disclaimer out there because the subject matter today might be a little bit of something that people might find that we're trying to give advice or kind of coach people on, and we are not medical advisors at all. We are not in a position to, we are just simply a pure entertainment channel, right? I
mean, yeah, definitely.
Our podcast is nothing about sheer entertainment, and hopefully we bring a smile to your face during the day. So just a little disclaimer out there to know that we're not trying to encourage people to do any of these things we're about ready to talk about.
Yeah, it's all just memories, things that we remember while we were coming up at, as Gen Xers back in the 80s.
Exactly. Yes. So on that note, the topic this week, you want to tell them what we're talking about?
Yes. This is like 80s and 90s diet fads. Yeah. So there you go. Okay. So just do with it what you will.
Yes. Yeah. And I think one of the things going off from just the beginning of it would be a lot of these kind of had very, very similar structures to them.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just they make slight little variations within these diets. And then it's like, okay, we put our stamp on this. Now it's ours. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And it would come to a crescendo, people scrambling around trying to find something quick because the sun's out now, the temperatures are rising, and it's summer. Like you're looking for the pool, the beach, looking to look good in your summer stuff. And
yeah.
This has always been since man's been on the planet. So it's like growing up as Gen Xers back in the 80s, like people were always like, okay, I want to get that. I want to get in, look good in that swimsuit or that bikini. Or I go to the beach on a family vacation and
yeah.
What can I grab? What can I do? This is way before internet was a thing.
And like for us, we actually, Kennard and I, we were always, this was obviously further into the 90s when we were able to actually travel around a lot. And we started taking our own vacations. We were definitely in the mindset that we wanted to get beach ready, quote unquote.
Oh, yeah.
And so we were notorious for creating our own little things that we would, maybe not a diet per se, but we would do this for a week or two, and so you'd feel really good by the time you were leaving for your trip.
It was totally not healthy.
Totally not healthy. I mean, so we're not even going to give you the deets on any of these, but they're pretty crazy.
They're very crazy.
And I know I shared a couple of those with the Hubba Hubs, and he looked at me like, what in the world? Like he was really...
Yeah. And two, like we were young and impressionable.
Yes.
So that's why we made the disclaimer and stuff, because this kind of stuff happens to some that are much, much younger. So, that's always a concern. But right. It was heavy in pop culture back then. Like we think about aerobics, that was big. It was baked into shows and sitcoms.
It really was. Everybody had their own, I don't know, like VHS tape.
Yes, it was the 80s social media.
Right. And Richard Simmons, we remember our mama. She, in the mornings, I can't remember if he was on every morning, but he was on.
He was.
And she would be out there. And this was before Sweating to the Oldies. This was something else that he did. This was something else that he did in the mornings, like on, I don't know if it was just ABC channel or whatever it was.
I
So
can't remember. Yeah,
yeah, and it was, yeah, he was quite the character.
it
But
was.
she watched him, and we'd come out and we'd buzz around her while she was trying to do her workout.
Yeah, and now we're getting it back because we did that to her, but now our cats do it to us, and we try to, get in our good walk for the day or whatever. It's like, okay, little furry thing, get lost.
Yes, but that is a nice thing. She couldn't just throw us outside, because we were so much younger. But with the cats, we're like, you go. We'll see you in about an hour.
Yeah, and then that cute little upside down triangle's like, you're being nasty again.
So let's talk about some of these. We mentioned Richard. I was this before Jane Fonda? She was kind of later on in the 80s, wasn't she? Jane
No,
Fonda's.
I think she was baked all through the 80s because she's
Okay.
older.
Yes, you're right. Yes. So she was probably like one of the very first set of tapes that you could get, workout tapes.
Oh yeah, always into aerobics. She has the aerobics and leg warmers, the headbands.
Yes, there was definitely a uniform to get and to shape. This was also something else that was really, really big, was like the gyms themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And they've really restructured a lot now, I think, because there were so many people who ran into problems because they'd sign up for these things, never go back to the gym, but they were on the hook for, I don't know if it was like a year or whatever the contract was. And like they really couldn't get out of it. So I think gyms have really restructured how they'll do like monthly memberships, or like you pay as you go type memberships, or things like that, so that people, they'll at least still sign up, because there are still people who are very much into the gym setting.
Right.
And I'm not even really sure when all of that kind of changed, but back in the 80s, people would sign up, the racquetball club, they were ready to go, and maybe a couple visits, or maybe they couldn't get their friends to go with them, and they'd just stop, and they'd want to get out of their contracts, and they were kind of on the hook for that.
You said racquetball. That's very 80s. Yes, racquetball. I think now the new thing is pickleball.
Definitely, yes.
Similar, but whatever.
My mother-in-law and my father-in-law are heavy into pickleball.
Really?
They love it. Yes, they love
trending. It must be trending.
Yes.
But like you were saying, so they kind of, we've seen over the years a restructuring of what's coming out on pop culture, what's coming out in the media, and how gym memberships are undertaken.
Yeah.
So that's kind of cool, but diets as well. So like, we can think of a few, we're going to list a couple that were very trendy back in the 80s and the early 90s, but to what is out now is much healthier.
Yes.
So like I see here on our papers, there's one called OptiFast.
Yeah, I think this was done by a really popular talk show host back in the day. We won't disclose her name. You probably know who we're talking about, but
she's tried them all.
Yes, pretty sure this. If this wasn't the actual name of the company she followed, is probably very close to what she did. And she got some serious results from that, for the very first time that she did a reveal on her TV show and everything. And I think a lot of people, there were people that we knew, we were a lot younger then when this happened, and there were older people who would like babysit us, and I believe a couple of them actually tried this form of diet as well, had some amazing results from it.
Okay.
And then their answer to that, their celebration to that, was, let's go out to dinner. And it was short-lived, right? I mean, the results were short-lived because it was not the same way, and it was such a drastic change from what they did later to celebrate the weight loss. So
right, and that's the one thing, then versus now, that hasn't changed. If you were going to put your mind to something like that better eating, cleaner eating, exercise, whatever. Like, you have to be committed inside. You have to be committed in your head and heart, because it
Yeah,
has to be lifestyle, not quick fix. And that was what it was back in the 80s and 90s. It was always about a quick fix.
it was. And I think somewhere along the line, like back then, it was definitely okay, just get smaller.
Mm-hmm.
It
Yeah.
doesn't matter if you're real toned or not. I mean, because aerobics, I think, are really just about burning calories, right? It's not
Yeah.
really about,
Cardio.
yeah. So it was like, just slim down, just get down smaller, but you don't have to have muscle tone.
Okay,
And
so these two things right here that you just said on our list, so you got the cabbage soup diet. That was definitely, oh, that was what you just described.
yes.
The grapefruit diet, that was just what you described.
Uh-huh.
Remember,
Yes.
remember the 3 day or the military diet where you're just eating ice cream and carrots and hot dogs.
Yes. But you did get your cup of ice cream, right? So you'd be excited about that.
It's like, it's all worth it just because of that. Let's see what else you got there on the list.
um I believe there was even one called the Elizabeth Taylor diet.
Oh, she was big back then. Not
She
like big as in
was.
body, big as in stardom.
Yes.
I'm
Yes. And
sorry.
to go with what you just said, she actually, I guess, was a size 6. Um, which I think obviously that number is probably considered not what you want to be now. I don't know. But anyway, she was a size 6 at the time, and they actually had a news article. I believe it was in the New York Times that the title of the article was Elizabeth Taylor diet tips on how to become a size 6. So
See, I was right out there in the media, right out there in the article baked in there. And, whoever's interested in that, how they going to process what they read or see.
right,
Mm-hmm.
right. Then there was also like the Scarsdale diet, which I believe was more focused on one of the macronutrients, and that's definitely the protein. Like it focused heavily on that. Yeah, so there were a lot of different variations, and I'm sure people cooked up their own like we did. Like we cooked up our own diet secrets or whatever.
Yeah. That's crazy. But I mean, like that, talking about macros and stuff, that's what I like about then versus now. I think the science has gotten better and proved for health purposes, because now if you're going to eat a certain structured way, macros, I've heard that that's kind of a good thing. Some people enjoy counting those when they're preparing meal plans and everything.
Right.
I do think the science behind some of the stuff going now is way better than it was back when we were coming up.
Yeah, at least what they're willing to disclose and help the average person to do.
Oh, yes. So that was kind of in the 90s. I think we've gotten away from actually, people have gone more toward what can they take quick.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
people did that unhealthy, or, may have had problems from that. But now it's trending again. Well, like even a little bit before the pandemic, like people jumped all over keto.
Mm-hmm. Yes, they did.
It was on everything in the grocery store. Everything was keto friendly.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean, you go to restaurants and order stuff. Now the big thing is gluten free, which a lot of people need it. So we're not knocking it.
Right.
But like, you could not turn your head to the right or the left and not hear about keto. And that was specifically designed for diabetics, I believe.
Okay.
So there are some Hollywood celebrities that they needed it to manage their diabetes, but like other people that didn't have it were jumping on the bandwagon, and it worked for them, and they were touting it on social media and everything, like it got to be a thing. And then the pandemic, now with work moving out of that, I don't hear about keto as much, but now people they're still wanting something quick and covert to take.
Yeah.
And we won't put the actual RX on blast, but there's a few things that people are just, it's all the rage in Hollywood. Like everybody's doing this, but then they try to pretend like that's not what they're taking. Which, who cares? If you got the money to take it, fine. But the complaint is that now it's for diabetics. That was the main purpose of it being manufactured. And now the people that need it the most feel like they can't get their hands on it.
Yeah.
Because it's being used for vanity purposes, all in the name of looking good and svelte and ready for summer. So I know you can't win.
You really can't. And it's insane too, because at this point, you know, they're trying to have a really broad spectrum of what size is acceptable in the media, right? They're trying to, you know, if you're a size 0 or 000, good for you. And if you're a size several sizes bigger, good for you. You know, all of it's beautiful. And, you know, that's really what they're promoting. Mm-hmm. So it's weird when you do have people who are going and getting something injected into them. Because really, at this point, you should be able to walk outside and feel comfortable in whatever size you are, because they're really trying to push that in the media now. So I don't know. Maybe the people who are still doing that, they just can't accept that. They're like, I definitely don't want to be a size bigger than what I am.
Oh, that body positivity movement. That was just, what, in the last couple of years? Probably because of the pandemic. That probably made them feel like, hey, you know.
Probably.
I'm good.
Yeah. But yeah, we're definitely 80s kids. You know, we grew up with that mindset. So, you know, we're not saying anybody's good or bad. We're just telling you this is what our experience is. This is what we grew up seeing and knowing, that definitely smaller was better is what we were seeing. Or given a picture of what beauty was. That was definitely 80s. You could probably Google that.
That was our observation.
I mean, it really was.
What it was. But, you know, we ought to do a part 2 on this, because about trends, how things were very hush-hush and done back then. We didn't know about that because everything was either camera tricks or, you know, just things we're like, wow, they're so beautiful or whatever. They're so handsome. But now... the curtain's pulled back. Like, we know what some of the things are now, because the average common person, the Main Streeter, can do the same things that people in Hollywood were only had access to back in the day. So we need to do a part 2 on this.
Okay. You talked me into it. Let's do that.
All right. Well, stay tuned, archivers. We'll talk to you soon.
And that's it for this week's Apple Snack. But as you know, there's always more where that came from. So stay tuned. Subscribe, rate, and review, and spread the word. See you next time in the Retro Orchard, and thanks so much for listening.